Because Rocky, like right now with leadership, that could be in so many different directions: leading your
Sure.
home, leading your wife, leading your kid, leading at work. But you work with a lot of CEOs. You work with leaders. How do you help people right now?
Leadership is a term that we created that said, do I have the ability to gain a follower? Leadership means I am walking in a direction, and there are other people who have either willingly or by obligation of job have chosen to say, I want to walk with you. That's what leadership is. Like, let go of all the other, what's impact I made and what were my KPIs. Now, no, actually, nobody cares. What they care about, like the most effective leaders, are those who say, I am going to a place that I deeply believe in, and I am asking you to come along with me if you so choose. Everything else is management.
Well, welcome to the show. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Rocky Garza here on the line. Super pumped for you guys to hear his story because it's a good one. It's talking about proactive leadership, really kind of examining who you are, what you're about. He has an 8-step path and a roadmap for helping people to achieve that with some really cool techniques and strategies we're going to talk about on this episode. So make sure to listen all the way till the end. Make sure to like and subscribe this because I think we're almost 80 episodes deep as in right now, recorded. And so we're excited to have more people on this journey where you're able to listen to some of these things while you're on the treadmill, walking the dog, cleaning the dishes, whatever, listening into some really good, engaging conversations with great people like Rocky here. I want to give you a gift before we dive in with talk with Rocky. There is a full training down below in the show notes that I want to make sure that you're able to get your hands on, because most of the time people struggle with trying to build an audience online and they don't know how to really scale. They don't know how to grow. They don't know what kind of offer they need to have, let alone ads or using AI. There's some full training down below that you want to be able to get your fingers on so that you guys can really scale and grow the right way. So have that link down below. Rocky, super glad that you're here. Diving into the podcast here with a question that I asked just about everybody is, What is high performance? What does that look like? What's the definition that you would describe that being?
Yeah, I think high performance is simply defined as personal responsibility. I think we can create a multitude of metrics that we would say, well, how do I qualify myself as a high performer, and what does it mean? And does it mean that I'm better than you? Is often performance, right? If we're on some sort of scale that's measured and then go, am I winning? Am I losing? I could tell you in my experience over the last decade, those that are the highest performers based on the outside's definition are those that have the greatest internal personal responsibility. People who do what they say they're going to do. They have a commitment to themselves that is exponentially larger than the external validation they get from someone else, and the ability to be able to say, our internally we call it the prove it method, the prove it theory. Like that every day they wake up and say, I'm going to do what I said that I'm going to do, and I'm going to prove it, but I'm going to prove it to me. I think folks, you can be a high performer for a short period of time by proving it to everyone else. I think you can be a high performer for your entire life and leave a legacy that far beyond extends what you were able to do while you were living, if you wake up every day and say that you're going to prove it to you.
And how do you help people right now? Because Rocky, like right now with leadership, that could be in so many different directions: leading your home, leading your wife, leading the kid, leading at work. But you work with a lot of CEOs. You work with leaders. Talk a little bit about how you really kind of do that.
Yeah. Well, so we start with self, which shouldn't surprise anybody given the definition we gave for performance, being a high performer. So we start with self. I think leadership is a term that we created that said, do I have the ability to gain a follower? Now, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we have a million ways in which we can track that. It can be followers on Instagram. It can be followers in our home. It can be, do our kids do we say they're going to do? I know we chatted a little bit before. We're both dads. Yeah. I think all of those capacities are leadership. Leadership means I am walking in a direction, and there are other people who have either willingly or by obligation of job have chosen to say, I want to walk with you. That's what leadership is. Like, let go of all the other, what's impact I made and what were my KPIs. Now, no, actually, nobody cares. What they care about, like the most effective leaders, are those who say, I am going to a place that I deeply believe in, and I am asking you to come along with me if you so choose. Everything else is management. Everything else is, can I make sure you did or didn't do the thing, right? I'm not leading my kids by making sure they did their laundry. That's managing the household. That's managing laundry. That's not leadership. Leadership says, I do laundry on these days. Come with me while I show you how to do laundry, such that when the time is appropriate, you may choose to do laundry on your own and have a skill set you didn't have prior to being with me. That's leadership. And I always use examples about our family, our marriage, our kids, because I think it's so much more applicable. And if we can learn it with a 9-year-old, you can learn it with a 39-year-old on your team. Not because I think 39-year-olds are like kids. I think kids are a really great place where we give them the opportunity to expect them to want to learn and to make a mistake. Great leaders in every aspect of their life expect the people around them to want to learn, and you should also expect them to make a mistake. If you could give the same kind of grace to your leadership team that you could give to your 9-year-old, I promise your business will be exponentially more profitable in 2025. If you can't, and you just want them to do it your way, you're just going to be really sad and upset. So we do that through self-reflection first. We start with self. We have a process called identity mapping. We built this over the course sort of the last decade or so, but we started building it a little over 10 years ago, which is a language that we don't tell you who you are. We extract out of you language you already have. If I were to say, okay, Nathan, give me, show of hands, have you ever felt misunderstood in your life? You would say?
Yes. Heck yeah.
Great. Of course you have, because you're a human being. Now, did you feel misunderstood because the person you were talking to was incapable of understanding? Or do you think most oftentimes you felt misunderstood because you were not communicating in a way that was understandable?
Yeah, it was on me for sure.
Great. Welcome to the corporate world. Welcome to being a human being. So if our lack of understanding is not a result of the other party's competency, it's a lack of my own ability to have the clarity and language to communicate who I am in a way that's understandable, then the onus is on me. So if we don't start with self-clarity, we use a process called identity mapping. That really allows us to go, wait, if I could extract a language out of you that you already have. I have never met a person in my 41 years that did not know who they were. However, I have met almost every person that did not have the language. I would say they were illiterate. They didn't have the language to describe who they were such that it was understandable. And you know this probably more than anybody else on this show, not because it's your show, because you've been in the marketing space for over a decade. Mm-hmm. Literally, the whole purpose is how do we help get the words out in a way that feel good to you, the owner, but actually feel really understandable to the person on the other side. If we can do that, the ad works, high conversion, you make money. Like that. We know it's in so many other arenas.
Right.
We tend to lack our ability and capacity to see that in self. So our relationship struggle, our partnership struggle, our marriages struggle, our parenting struggles, our sibling relationship struggle, our friendship struggle, community struggles. Why? We don't have we'll use your words, because you don't have a very strong message. You don't have very good marketing, because you're talking about yourself in a way that none of us can understand. And then you're disappointed when we can't say back to you what you think you need. And the last time I asked you what you needed, you said, I don't know, but it's my fault for not meeting your needs. Slippery slope. So how do we gain self-clarity through identity mapping? What's the next step? Well, then we would go to what we call the confidence method. What is maybe another way to think about it is imposter syndrome. I've never met a person in my life that didn't at some point think like, oh man, I don't really know if I am who I think that I am. Well, by the way, the imposter is you. Like the imposter's voice is your voice. There's no other voice in there. It's your own voice. So how come on a Monday you can wake up and go, I'm going to crush this week? Your voice. And on Tuesday, you can go, they're going to find me out and I'm going to be fired. Also your voice. Wednesday, hey, we did it. Sales came in. We're feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm pretty good at this job. Thursday, this is probably my last day of employment and it's never going to work again. And so on and so on and so on. We have to be able to extract out of what are those stories? Where did they come from? Who said that about you? I've been told my whole life, Rocky, you're too much. Rocky, you're too intense. Like those of you that are listening that you're like, hey, I need to play this on half speed because my guy is amped up. This is just me always. This is not it's not a switch. I wish sometimes I could like turn the switch off, but there's not a switch. This is just me, which is why I try really hard to talk really fast and get us really going. And then when it's necessary, then like right now that you're listening, you need a break. I can tell, I can't see you, but I know you need a break. And so we'll slow it down so your brain can catch back up and you can take a breath and breathe. And we'll get back up here in a second. And so, well, why? Well, because I know that in all of those ways, I've been told my whole life, Rocky, you're too intense. Calm down. So guess what Rocky tells himself? Rocky, look at their face. I've been a keynote speaker for 2 decades. I can read a room and I can tell when you're looking at me like, hey, this isn't going well. Wait a second, is it not going well because I'm doing a bad job? That's the imposter. Or is it not going well because for the first time in your life, you're being faced with the reality that in order to change, the only thing that has to change is you. And you've been in business for 30 plus years. And now the bald guy with big eyebrows who didn't wear a sports coat is on stage at my company conference, sort of calling me out without really calling me out. So is his face a reflection of the fact that I'm an imposter, or is his face a reflection of the fact that he's actually willing to change his life? And if I can take this story that says, Rocky, you're too intense, and I can turn it into a confirmation, which is, Rocky, you are intense, which may, by the way, that's true. What if we could go one layer further? And what if we could put a comma at the end of that sentence instead of a period? And what if we could say, Rocky, you are intense, comma, and you are good? And we could take those same thoughts and train them from confirmations and create affirmations, which is the belief that something is good. Mm-hmm. And then I could wake up every day, and it doesn't have to be affirmation like I love my hair, I love my dog. I mean, those are great. If you want to do those, you can. But I mean affirmation in the sense of, do I look in the mirror and believe that who I am is good? Not my tasks, not my qualities, not my capabilities, not my skill set. I'm saying inherently as a human being. If the answer to that is yes, everything changes. But we can't get there until we understand ourselves, self-clarity. Mm-hmm. Self-clarity lends itself to self-confidence. We then take both of those things, roll that together. We apply that in what we call the influence appraisal, which is our ability to say, how do I begin to now apply this into my daily life? Relationships, parenting, friendships, work, leadership. We just wrapped up earlier today onboarding one of our new one-on-one coaching clients. All of our one-on-one clients come in for a half-day identity mapping. I take them through it myself, one-to-one. So we spent 4.5, almost 5 hours together this morning. And he walked away. He's a COO of a med device company. Walked away with the clearest picture he's ever had. He's 45 years old. I'm sure my guy's very talented. Went to Vanderbilt. He's much smarter than me. I barely graduated college. So he didn't walk away with clear because I gave him all the right answers. I said, when's the last time you stopped and spent 5 hours doing nothing but assessing who you were, what that went, and why that mattered? He said, I probably haven't done it in 2 years, in 20 years. I said, well, then we've already won just because you showed up. So my job is to help people show up for themselves and see that what they see in the mirror can be good. Find the language for what that means. And how do you begin to practically apply that in every aspect of your life? Don't separate your work and life. Work-life balance is a lie. It's not real. Yeah. It doesn't exist. Let it go. How do you apply that to being a human being? And then where do you see the benefit and the fruit of that every place else in your life?
How did you learn these things? Where did this all begin from the very beginning here? Like, it's an interesting story you have leading leaders.
Yeah. I mean, where it started was little Rocky, that's dad left before he turned 2 and spent his whole life growing up without his dad. Watched his dad get remarried and have 2 kids and live a whole other life, sort of a semi-adjacent to where he was. Started with a little Rocky whose mom's been married and divorced 5 times, and little Rocky who went to 13 schools before he graduated from high school, most pre-7th grade, because I went to the same junior high and same high school. So 13 schools and 12 grades, but 5 of those grades were only in 2 schools. So you can do the math. Little Rocky who rode the bus home at 6 years old and let himself in, was a latchkey kid and let himself in and unlocked the door and locked the door and waited till his mom got home. Little Rocky who wanted to belong. Little Rocky who didn't know that the first day of school didn't mean the first day out of school till I was in 7th grade. I didn't realize the first day of school was like a time of year. I thought the first day of school meant it's the first day at your school, because it had always been a first day at the school for me. Little Rocky who didn't get to be on the Yankees little league team because they had played together their whole life up until this point. And so at 10, I had to be on the Braves, who sucked because it was all the kids who just moved here, because the Yankees said, you can't be on our team because our dad only coaches the kids who have all been here together. And I can go on and on and on. Little Rocky who went to high school and thought he wanted to be an athlete and was not terrible at sports, but was much better at people, and then realized about a week before graduating high school, he didn't really even like football. And so why would I go spend 4 years doing that? And so I had to figure it all out again. And we can go on and on and on and on and on. And there's plenty of podcasts out there. I have a longer version of my story. You don't have to listen to this one again to do that. I've been on a journey to discover who I am my whole life, Nathan. I've been on a journey to figure out where do I fit and where do I belong, and how do I live presently, knowing that I don't really have control over the circumstances. I don't really have control over what my wife does or doesn't do. I don't really have control over what my kids do or don't do. I don't really have control if my mom comes back or my dad says hi or I see him on Christmas. I don't have control on where we're going to do this, this, and this. And so I think early on in my life, I realized the only thing I have control of is me. The only thing I have control of is the decisions that I make right now. The only thing I have control of is the responsibility that I take. And I've been asked to take responsibility in every aspect of my life, my whole life. I've been the adult my whole life, been the parent my whole life. I've been the one responsible one my whole life. I find myself today at 41. I'm responsible for my kids and for my wife and for my marriage. I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my parents. I'm responsible for my grandparents. I'm sort of in this odd conundrum, and you're probably very similar. This I am both father and son and self all at the exact same time, and I have a very short window where that's the case. There will soon be a day where I am no longer the son because there is no longer a father. So I think in this really unique space, I feel very fortunate that the next decade of my life, I feel like is maybe the most profound decade I have, because it's the only decade where I am father and son and self simultaneously, and I think it's a beautiful place to be in. But I've spent my whole life trying to discover. And so the identity mapping, the confidence method, 365 formula, the influence appraisal, the questions we ask, the tell me about that game, books we write, podcast, all of that, if I'm being very clear, is my attempt and approach to say, what have I done that has helped me find clarity in me? And how do I take and translate that to give it to somebody else so that they can do the same thing? That if I've been given the ability and the gift to live wildly present, what have I seen in that presence? What do I find in that presence? What's the reflective activity that I've been able to sort of do? And why do people trust me? Well, people trust me because I was very good at building a connection with you, because I had to. Because if I didn't find a friend within the first 5 days of school, then I didn't get invited to the sleepover, which means I didn't have friends because you already knew each other. Now, I didn't go to school at 10 years old going, where are my friends? And let me get invited. I went to school going, fuck, survive. Find someone. Say hello to someone, build a connection with someone. Come to find out that even 41 years later, most of us are just waiting for someone to say hello, someone to build a connection, someone to say, hey, I see you, someone to say, hey, you belong. Well, if I can find tools and resources that help individuals do that, I believe I can leave the world a better place.
Yeah. Was this we all have our origin stories of like where it all began, but it sounded like you went through some self-discovery. Is this through reading books? Is this by going to conferences, seminars, to really kind of identify being on the other side of that? Because I think most people take those challenges that they had in their life and they're just becoming survivors of those crazy stories and beliefs they've been wired to. And a lot of times you have to unwire some of these bad challenges and circumstances to actually have a clarity in direction, let alone identity of who you are. Like, how did you go about that transformation for yourself?
Yeah. So, man, I wish I could say that there's like I read these two books and then, or I went to this one event, or I've been on this journey. I've been on this journey for a really long time. I maybe try to be as practical as I can. I try to ask more questions than I give answers.
And that's a quality and a trait that's not easily done.
Yeah, for sure.
To ask good questions. Yeah.
I think I make the assumption as often as possible that I am absolutely right and absolutely wrong, both, and almost always both are the case. Whatever it is that you think, you do believe you're right. So you probably are. I also totally disagree and think I'm right. I probably am, which means we probably are. So can I create the environment? I mean, I think my whole life it was done for survival, then sort of got turned into you'll come to find out, Nathan, I'm a little cheesy. I do like alliteration. But I think, we have to ask ourselves, are you currently using your past and your pain as a mechanism to protect yourself? Meaning I'm using my past and my pain as a reason to keep you away, a reason to say I don't need you, a reason to say I'm independent and I do me and I don't. Is that driven from your past and your pain being used as a mechanism to protect yourself? Because if you were to allow yourself to be seen, the fear of what would come from being seen, known, loved, belonging, and I'm not saying that to fluff us up or to use flowery language. I mean, in a deep-rooted sense of belonging as a human being. Am I using that to protect myself? Because history has shown me that historical things that have occurred feel like a greater representation of my future success than my capacity to create a different future. So then because I think I'm going to get hurt, I'm going to keep you away. I'm going to be very good at disclosure and very bad at vulnerability. I'm going to be really good at feeling open, but very bad at building connections, right? Or do you use your past and your pain as a mechanism to propel yourself in the direction of your purpose? Right. We have a lot of P words there, but you see what we're doing. because I think that requires self-clarity. That requires to go, I was abandoned. Rocky Garza, as a child, was abandoned. I wasn't left on the side of the road. I did never not have food. I had most of the Tommy Hilfiger polos that I could afford from Ross that my grandma would buy me that any human being could ever want. Like, I had what I needed. I never went without food, never went without school supplies. Got to hang out with my grandparents the majority of my life. My mom loved me the very best that she could. That's not throwing her under the bus. My dad loved my dad. Great. I hope to see him soon. Like, we have the best relationship that we've ever had. Went on our first vacation together in 2023. We've ever been on our whole life at 40 years old. Like, life can continue. Life's going to continue. No matter what, life is going to continue. So I think there's a part of this that we have to sort of sit back and go, I'm probably right and I'm probably wrong. I only know what I know. Mm-hmm. There's a lot out there that your boy is not an expert in. So how do I then make a decision, conscious decision, not like ethereal, not feel good, not put it in a meme, daily, like hourly if you need to. Am I going to take my past and my pain? Am I going to use it to protect myself because I refuse to get hurt again? Mm-hmm. Or do I recognize that the pain and the hurt is actually what has caused me to see, know, and understand greater things about me than any pleasure ever could? And therefore, I'm going to use it as a mechanism to propel myself in the direction of my purpose, which for me is I spend my whole life figuring out who I am. If I can squeeze that and condense time for you and let you get from point A to point B in 1/10 the time that it took me. We're rhyming here. We didn't mean to do that. That was by accident, by the way.
You're a hip-hop artist, so it's all good.
Like, we do what we can. Then I think there's a part of that to go, like, how could I not? How could I not? And so, yeah, there's lots of great tools. There's lots of great assessments. There's lots of anything that drives you towards a piece of better understanding of self. My answer is do it. Don't put all your weight into eggs in one basket. Don't think that one assessment, the Enneagram's not going to tell you everything you need to know. Myers-Briggs isn't. The DISC assessment isn't. People culture index isn't. They're all going to tell you a different something that you already know to be true. The reason we like them is because it confirms. And here's where it gets crazy. Why do businesses love things like culture index? Because people go take the assessment, they see it, and they go, oh my gosh, that is me. And the kicker, the really good assessments that make a whole lot more money than you and me are the assessments that where they've created a space at the end of that assessment, when they go, that really is me. They equip tools and they equip leaders to go, and not only is it you, but we think it's good. And now everyone's obsessed with culture index because they go, oh my gosh, you finally see me for me. I have words to describe who I am, and somebody thinks that it's good. I love the culture index, and replace that with any other assessment that's out there. If they're doing it well, we're no different. We're trying to do the same thing, except we're just trying to help you give the language that you created for yourself rather than trying to give you the language from something else.
Let me ask you this. With a lot of leaders that I see, we're cut from a different cloth. And I think they're just like go-getters, like you're saying, with high performance, where they're just like, they're taking accountability, they're taking ownership, and they're just doing what's in front of them. But I feel like there's an element of like moving forward that it's like you're almost lying to yourself, being an optimist of like charging, the day, charging the week. Like there's the self-belief and understanding of like, hey, even though it could go sideways, you're dealing with challenges or things, you're still charging ahead. Mm-hmm. And then there's the ability to like look and examine yourself, which is not always the easiest thing, mm-hmm. but that helps build some stronger belief of more positive stuff. Like you're rewiring it into affirmations, right, like you're saying. But there's a lot of arrogance. There's a lot of like chip on the shoulder with leaders that have this stuff where they don't want to examine their past, where they just believe they have it all together. Like, there's some major barriers oftentimes that we put up as fronts, and you're not only helping them break them down to build them back up, but it's probably hard to ask questions to actually weave within those barriers to actually get to the heart of it. Like,
yeah.
And how do you go about that?
Yeah, I would say please hear me say this humbly. Asking the question and getting to the core of it is not difficult. Getting you to sit still long enough and being willing to be asked the question is the hardest part. Getting you to say, I think I'm going to work on me. Shoot. Hardest part. I mentioned earlier, the guy that we had in here today, he reached out to, we're almost in the middle of February. He inquired October the 2nd from a referral from somebody else that I worked with 5 years ago. He reached out to her because he knew her about an executive coach. She recommended me. By the way, haven't talked to her in 5 years. What a gem of a person she is. She referred to me. We got on the phone and talked. We have been texting back and forth since October, November, December, January, almost 4.5 months. Now, probably 2.5 months in, he was ready. Then we had to convince the owner of the business and the CEO that he wanted to foot the bill for it. Now, ABC, we know all the parts and pieces. Today, he came in. Out of all the things that we did, great. My guy's feeling good. Like he just had this meeting on this last Friday with the owner. He's going to another meeting this next Friday, and he like wrote down all these notes. He was like, "This, if nothing else, I came for was this because I'm going to make 3 slides that say this and put this in because this is exactly what I want to say." Now I have to go. You know what, Rocky? Calm down. It took 4.5 months because if he'd have said yes 2 months ago, it would have done this. He had a very, very important decision to make about his personal life that he needs to make in the next 24 hours, meaning 24 hours from today. Okay, so. Rocky, don't think so highly of yourself. He came in when it was time for him to come in. He came in when it was supposed to come in. He came in when he was, but the hardest part was not asking the questions. That was beautiful. That's easy. The hardest part is getting the leader to go, I think I want help. I think I want support. I think I want to be different. I think I want to admit, I had a mentor tell me one time, Nathan, he said, every person I've ever met is ignorant, but every day you make a conscious decision that you're going to be ignorantly arrogant or you're going to be ignorantly humble. You're either going to say, I'm going to be ignorantly arrogant and say, I'm sure there's things I don't know, but I don't need to know them. Or you're going to be ignorantly humble and you're going to say, there are things that I don't know. And I'm on a pursuit today to figure out what I don't know so I can figure out what I want to know next. Very interesting. Leaders who have the greatest impact live daily in ignorant humility. The ability to say, there are things that I don't know. I am willing to go on a path and a pursuit to know them while A-N-D, the word but, get rid of it, doesn't matter. A-N-D, and I love this working definition of humility. And I will remain humble, meaning I will have a full understanding and acceptance of everything that I am capable of, and I will keep it put away until it is necessary for it to be used for the greatest good. Humility is not pretending you suck. Humility is not talking about yourself. Humility is not pretending that you're not good at something and then doing it in secretive. That's not humility. Humility is a full recognition of everything I'm capable of. I know my words have 2 choices. Every day, Nathan, my words can do 2 things. I can absolutely destroy you because you cannot keep up with me.
Sure.
Or I can help you get to a place you never could before and allow my words to breathe life into who you are. I have the choice every day. Humility isn't to say that I'm not good with words. I would almost say that's arrogance. That's the belief that you're so good that you get to keep it to yourself. No, humility is to say, I know exactly what I'm capable of. And I'm going to use it when it's best appropriate for the greatest good when necessary. And I'm pretty ignorant. And there's a lot of things I don't know. So I'm going to ask a lot more questions than I give answers. And hopefully, collectively, at the end of the day, we can get to someplace we've never been before.
What I love your take on this is there's questions that need to be done for realization. And that's leadership, is leading people through a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding. And now in the day-to-day world of AI and technology, the one skill that cannot replace the humans is being able to not only lead yourself, but lead others. Right. And I think that's, you can automate AI systems. You can with AI automate marketing and sales. You could do a lot of those sort of things, but leadership is still going to be a key component of human to humans.
That's right.
Talk about some of that discovery, because I think you either fell on it or chose this knowing that the next decade the best businesses run are the ones that not only have adapted to AI, because AI is just going to bombard us, but the key part that everybody will need is still being able to lead not only himself, but lead others with that.
100%. I mean, let's take somebody who's at the very top of the game. I don't think there's anyone better in the world at when it comes to development of human beings. Let's take Tony Robbins. Whether you like him or don't like him, appreciate him or not, we cannot get around the fact that my guy is top tier. I mean, he created the game and he's also winning it, and he has for 4 decades. Okay. Yeah. Now, tell me why in a world, number one, where my boy can do whatever he wants. I got a pretty strong feeling money's not an issue for him. Okay. Also, got a pretty strong idea that he probably has access to more tools and resources than me or you do. from systems, processes, AI, advancing technology, pick one. Yet, quarterly, for the last 4 decades, thousands of people pay thousands of dollars to be in a room with thousands of other people they don't know, under the pretense that there's going to be someone in that room who's going to guide them to see themselves in a way that they long for. They can have a vision of what they want, and they are so lost. I shouldn't say they, we are so lost, because me too, on how to get there, that we go to a room with thousands of people in 2025 with another human being and pay thousands of dollars hoping to find the way to get to the thing that we really want, when every resource we need to do that is out there. I'm sure at some point, if it's not already, you can go to TonyRobbins.ai and just go talk to him right now. He doesn't have to be there.
Right.
Donald Miller's doing it with StoryBrand.ai. I mean, I could go down the list of all the people who are doing it and putting themselves into GPT. Like but people don't want that. At the end of the day, I don't think we were designed for that. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, this is not a religious thing. This is more of a philosophical thing or a human thing. At the end of the day, we are all longing to be deeply connected with another human being.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, as it relates to in the state of commerce, in the state of business, and it really applies everywhere. I think I just got really fortunate that I get to do it in the business space, because really all we do is talk about being a human in the business space. We don't really talk about business that much, but in all those, it's what we want. We're longing to be connected. We're longing to belong. We're seeing an influx currently of like back to face-to-face conferences and annual QBRs and leadership meetings. Why? Because we're so done. We're so, me and you can pick on each other because we both have a podcast and we both do it virtually. Like, can you imagine if we were together? Right? I think that can you imagine? Yeah, but there's so many people I can reach. My reach can be further online. And like, let me tell you something. I'm guilty. Like I do it too. So I'm preaching to the choir here. Yeah, but maybe this is a question that I'm answering for myself. Just happens to be on your show. What if I dedicated the next 40 episodes to being people who are present with me physically only? Don't fly in. Don't come in. You have to live within a 40-mile radius to be on the show, for the purpose of going, what kind of connectivity could we build and what kind of change could I make in my community if I gave the same energy to the 40-mile radius from my home that I gave to the 4,000-mile radius online? I guess, how do we measure reach? Not good or bad, not right or wrong. I'm not telling you that I think one is right and one is wrong. These are questions I think to myself to go, what am I actually doing?
Yeah.
Where does change happen? I don't have to be US famous. I can just be Dallas famous. I could just be Oak Cliff famous. I could just be my zip code famous and have a absolute massive impact.
Yeah.
Is that good? Is that good enough for me? Does that translate well? Is that sales wise? Does it? And I got a bunch of questions I can't answer after that. So I said, you know what? We're going to stick and do it online too. So I can talk to guys like Nathan, because we don't live in the same place. Yes. And to all that.
I think that some of the strongest drivers that we as humans have is significance and fulfillment. And that comes from the relationships that we have. Mm-hmm. And then we prioritize ones than others, ones that we choose from our spouses, and the other ones that are just God-given, that are just wired internally, that we just love, even though they cry and pout and leak everywhere. Yep. Right.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the things that we look at, if we're like looking at our legacy of like what we want to have written on our tombstone and the legacy that we give is people around us. Money's not going to matter as much. Status is not going to matter as much. What we've done in business or in finance, whatever, it comes down to the relationships that we have. And I think there's a lot of translation of like, we push as high achievers for the success that we have, and we label it as success for our families and provision, but that's not always the case too. I think we're looking for significance in a lot of different ways, but I think what we're really shooting for is more connection with our people that are the closest to us that we really want. And I want to ask you this question too, because I think it all stems to our relationships. And I remember the episode in Office, people were asking Stanley, right? The guy that was, always like a monotone guy. And he had different marriages. He was like, I'm not going to say sorry to my, wife. I'm not going to do it again in the next wife either. That type of thing. It's like, there's that humility that bridges the gap of the humanity and what we're choosing and wanting to have. Like, talk about some of what you're seeing when you're coaching leaders is like not only leading yourself, but you're leading your family, the most significant people that you want most in your life, even after retirement,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what we're
Great.
actually shooting for too.
Totally. Totally. I'll start with self, because I think that would be most on brand. I remind myself, part of the reason we talked about this before, part of the reason I only travel 24 times a year, and that's sort of my limit, is I will be gone 24 times a year, for whether it's for coaching or whether if it's for speaking or whatever, is because I refuse to get on the stage and tell you to build a life that you believe in and to not jeopardize what you love most. And I can't do that more than 24 times without jeopardizing what I love most. So who am I to get on stage and tell you to build a life you love while creating one that I hate? That doesn't make any sense to me. And to say that I would do that for my family, I'm full of shit. That's not true. That's absolutely, it's a 100, it would be 100% for me. So that's number one is, yeah, I do it for my family. I'd go ask your family what they want and see what it is you're really doing for your family. I'd start there. I'm not telling you you're wrong. They may say, go for it, mom or dad, love you. Great. Have at it. I'm not here to tell you that you're right or wrong. I just want to make sure that you know it's true. And I think that's sort of step number one. I think the second component of that is one thing that we focused on over the last few years is really, really walking individuals to what we would say is the very personalized intersection of personal conviction and professional ambition. How do we find the intersection of a deeply meaningful life and a wildly successful career? I find, and I catch a lot of heat for this, but I guess if you're not catching heat, you're not doing it right. I think there are a lot of coaches, consultants, gurus who say, if you want a successful life, and you like my life, come do what I'm doing, and you too can have a life like mine. And they never once asked me what kind of life I wanted. They just told me I must want one like theirs. So I go, pay the money, get the course, join the mastermind, get in the group, do everything they tell me to, find an intersection, build a house, only to come to find out I hate the neighborhood, and this is not what I wanted to build at all. I get it. I understand it. And I'm not telling you that any of those things are wrong or bad. I'm not calling anybody out. Everybody do you. Somebody's willing to pay it, sell it, I guess. I'm not. I don't know where you want to go. People ask me all the time, we're going to do one-to-one coaching. It's not cheap. And they're like, okay, but how are we going to start? My assumption is you need help because you have quite a few things you want to figure out. I guess we'll start by addressing the first problem. I mean, what you asking me? What are the 17 steps we're going to do so you can have an 8-figure exit? I don't know anything about you. I have no idea what to tell you how you're going to do that because I don't know you. Sounds to me like you don't know you. Feels like we should probably start there. And I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that for me, I'm right. I don't know what it is that you want. I got to help you figure those same things out. So I think there's a component of that goes, we're looking at it for leadership and personally and professionally, and we're ambitious and we have drive and what do we want to do and where do we want to go? Like we got to sort of take a step back and go, well, what is the intersection of a deeply meaningful life and a wildly successful career for you? The average person we work with says, I have no idea. And I say, well done, because I don't know is the first step you take before clarity. And if we can get clear, clarity is the first step we take before we get to the catalytic moment that we're looking for. So if you really want a catalyst, you want to change your life, you want to do something great, you want to be invigorated, you want to move, you want to drive. If you want that, if you're looking for that catalyst, what's that thing that's really going to propel me? Let's pause and let's go make sure we have clarity. You don't have clarity? Great. What do you want? I don't know. Love the answer. I don't know. Because I don't know says that you're willing to pause long enough to take a little bit of a reflection to determine what is the next step that you're actually going to take. And I think that has to be done as a human. It has to be done as a human. I see this current shift, and I hope I'm right. I feel like I see this shift when it comes to development, human development, personal, professional development. For a long time, the Zig Ziglars of the world were in professional development, right? Like it was like we're going to do professional development, and then there was this period of time, and Tony Robbins sort of pushed that forward, and then we sort of transitioned over to personal development, and then we had this like big influx. And I'm a huge proponent of therapy and counseling. And so in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I'm sure you've seen it online. It's on ads and it's running everywhere. We're now in a super huge push for personal development. Like screw your job, take care of yourself. And I get it, love it. But we went from here and we were like, hey, just kidding. Now we're over here. And if those of you that are not watching, you're listening, that's a big pendulum swing. We went from go out and make as much money as you can, have a great business and professional development. And we swung to go screw the man and you take care of yourself. I don't have money. I don't know how I'm going to take care of myself, but I do feel healthy. Okay, great. Well, what about the space of being a human? Mm-hmm. And today, to be a human, pick a country. You got to feel like you have a good purpose as a person, and you got to freaking find a way to make money. That's just the reality for all of us.
Right.
So if we could continue to create mechanisms that allow people to discover the intersection of a deeply meaningful life and a wildly successful career for themselves, if we could help you really hone in on what is my personal conviction, identity mapping, my professional ambition, where I'm driving as a leader, and we can find this specific intersection of those two things just for you, just like you have a fingerprint, just like you have, pick another metaphor that is so specific to you, then we actually have a path that you can build to get to that place. But please don't build your house next to mine. Please don't pursue what I am pursuing. It is going to fail you. But please discover what those locations are specifically for you.
Rocky, it's been amazing to be on a podcast here with you to connect. How can people, though, connect with you further and follow you and understand your journey and how they can get some support from you?
Totally. So you can just follow me on all platforms out there. It's just at Rocky Garza, ROCKYGARZA. Look for the bald guy with big eyebrows. You'll find me. There's not a lot of Rockies out there that look like me. If you're looking for a free resource, we actually have a book called The Imposter Within, free for you, free ebook for you. It's a ebook/pocket guide. You can go to rockygarza.com/confidence. Again, that's rockygarza.com/confidence. Get a copy of the ebook. Every chapter has questions at the end to work you through to really discover where am I at, where do I want to go, what does that look like? And we'd love for you to grab a copy of that.
Perfect. I'll put that link down below. Thanks, guys, for tuning in and listening to the podcast. Go follow Rocky, and we will see you on the next episode.